Hey everyone, welcome back to the Steep. In this video, we're going to take a look at Offat, the Offensive API Tester suite from OWASP. So if you've used Swagger, if you've used Postman, if you've used Burp, those are all wonderful for API testing. But if you haven't used this tool, this will be a quick introduction and something which I hope will sail you to at least taking a look at that and putting it in your tool suite. So let's jump in. All right, first thing we're going to need to do is make sure that we have Python 3 Flask installed. So if you haven't already confirmed that on your system or installed it, make sure you run sudo apt update and sudo apt install -y with Python 3 -flask. When you do that, it's going to tell you that it's been installed. And then the next thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and set up an OpenAPI test.json file. And what this is this is going to be our sample file that we're going to point Offat at. So I know this is going to be a little bit difficult. So what I'd like to do is start at the top here. I'm going to go ahead and leave this here. Let me turn on line numbering just so you have that and you can make sure that that you're aware of where we're at in the file. So in this case, this particular screen will go through 59, line number 59. For those of you who don't want to type this out or maybe don't want to produce this by hand, I totally get it, right? We'll be happy to provide these files for you. Just let me know if you want to in the comments. Just comment that you'd like the files, and I'll go ahead and put those up. I'm also flirting with the idea of getting a temporary Google Drive setup or a share setup so I can actually just put those files up there for you. I hate to put them over on GitHub because, again, I don't know how permanent this is going to be. This is really just to kind of get you started. So with that being said, if you don't want to type all this, I get it. But let's go ahead and move down and finish up this file. So you may recall that we ended with line 59. So I'm just going to move the cursor down so we know where we were previously. Okay. And let's see here. Perfect. We'll try to drop it right there. Okay, that's as close as I can get it for the moment. So here's 59 and here's the file to the end. So I'll give it another moment here where you can pause the video and capture this. All right, fantastic. Let's go ahead and move on. I'm going to go ahead and close this file. And then we're going to create one more file. And this one isn't as brutally ugly as the last one, but we're going to create a mock server. And this is where that Python 3 Flask installation is going to come in. So let's go ahead and pull this up full screen. And same thing, I'm going to go ahead and set line numbering back on for you. So, and this is a standard Python, right, script for those of you who aren't maybe as familiar with it. We're going to import from Flask and obviously set things up. So as you can see here, we're just creating a couple IDs, Alice and Bob, our typical Alice and Bob. If you've gone through OCSP or OCSP, sorry, OSCP, good, cool. I'll get it right one of these days, guys. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. So, but yes, if you've gone through OffSec Certified Professional or OSCP, you've probably dealt with Alice and Bob a time or two before. Obviously, you haven't dealt with a Patrick who's tongue tied, but whatever. Anyhow, I digress. So you can go ahead and get this configured for yourself. But this is going to be just a typical API hosting Python instance. So, and you can see there at line 42, we are particularly running this against the loopback on port 5000, and we are setting debug to true. And the reason we're setting debug to true is I'd like you to be able to see all the content kind of coming back from this file, so that way you can kind of confirm the efficacy or the effectiveness of that Offat tool when we run it. All right, a lot of heavy talking. Let me shut up. We'll go ahead and close this file. And last thing we're going to do here, let me minimize or bring it back so you can see. And we're going to run a Python 3 mock server py. And that's what we last edited. And what that's going to do is set up our mock API server that's going to host that particular instance, right? Or that OpenAPI file. And as you can see here, we're in debugging mode. We're all ready to go. So in another terminal, you're going to want to go ahead and install Offat. Now, Offat does not have an apt install, so to my knowledge, you can't do that on Kali instances. You're going to have to use pipx to install that. So please go ahead and run your pipx install Offat. I'm not going to do that since I've already done it, and I don't want to risk corrupting anything here. So once you go ahead and install OFAT with pipx, you should be able to do a which OFAT and see that it's going to place it right wherever your directory structure was where you installed. And in this case, mine is under that steep user, and it's under the .local bin, and then OFAT is the actual file itself. Now we should be in good shape and ready to roll. So the next thing we're going to do is actually run our test. And if you've used Burp, if you've used Postman, if you've used SOAP UI, if you've used anything to kind of do API testing, you know largely that a lot of that is manual. There are some tools that will help automate the process, but what I like about Offat is it actually does a little bit more of that automation for you. So we'll see that here in a moment. So let's go ahead without further ado and kick this off. And as you can see, it produces a lot of detail very quickly on both screens. So let's scroll up to the Offat screen first. So in this case, you're going to see that it gives us some warnings and then some general checking information. And in this case, it's generated 9 tests, and it's looking for SQLi or SQL injection or SQLi vulnerabilities. It's going to create additional testing based off of that, and then kind of run through that. So you'll see some BOLA in the path, fuzz parameters, all that good stuff. Now the table that it gives you may be a little bit confusing to you at first, so go through that and make sure that you're looking at it end to end. There is a little notification right after the table, and I'll show that to you here in a moment, but don't get in the habit of just looking at the color coding and walking away. That's easy to do, but when you see green, that's a good thing. When you see red, that's a bad thing. Obviously, sky's blue, grass is green, no shit, Sherlock. But from this standpoint, just because we don't have a data leak doesn't mean we don't have a vulnerability. So pay attention to both columns and kind of parse this detail so you know what it is that it's doing and how you need to manually vet this. And you should be manually vetting this. This is just a tool to kind of help you get along a little bit quicker. So again, as you can see here, a lot of SQLi or SQLi injection type of syntax going along. You've got some directory traversal where it's trying to grab the path for the password file and the shadow file. It's got some ls-la going on, so look for hidden files, anything of that nature. It's got some standard cross-site scripting, right? All good stuff. So you'll see a lot more of this. So idempotency issues, and in this case, you know, this is pretty common for enumeration. So you're going to see server-side template include tax sequence here. This is a very common SSTI syntax that's used. So lots of wonderful capability. And then again, here is that warning that I was kind of telling you about, making sure that you pay attention to both columns. And in this case, it's going to tell you, hey, data leak and vulnerable on the table represent independent aspects. Again, that makes sense. And just because one says that it may have a data leak, it may still not be vulnerable or still be marked as success. So mileage will vary. Get accustomed to vetting this information for yourself as well. And then you can see here that it kind of chunked through. And because this was a fabricated or a quickly generated OpenAPI JSON file or a test JSON file, there's not a lot to it. It's just something to show you the effectiveness of the tool. Okay, meanwhile, now that we've got that out of the way, let's go back up and take a look at our particular logs here for the Python server. And this is extremely beneficial because for those of you who like to kind of learn what the tool is doing and not just go with whatever it's giving you in its various stage of output, you'll get to see the actual sequence or the syntax that is passing along directly to the server. So in this case, it tried different verbs or HTTP methods, which is pretty commonplace. And again, you're going to see failures, right? 405 indicates that the method wasn't allowed. 404 indicates it wasn't present. So lots of good stuff. Here we've got a 200. So chances are we've got some decent detail there to look into and a potential SQL injection. Things to be aware of. All right. So get accustomed to looking through this. You'll see a lot more SQL injection or SQLi syntax here. Just be prepared to kind of go through this with a fine-tooth comb if you're not as familiar with it. And for those of you who are interested in APIs or just getting started, I think this is a wealthy tool to use to kind of teach yourself a little bit more. So anyhow, I've been talking at you for a while. We'll call it good. I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know in the comments as always. And happy hunting, happy pen testing. We'll see you next time. Enjoy yourselves. All right. Peace.